everyone, and welcome to Call Your Hits, a Storm Riders Airsoft podcast. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Today I've got Jordan with me, and we wanted to do a bit of a retrospective on his time playing Airsoft from the point of view of where he started, like just over a year ago, and where he is now. In particular, I'm curious to know more about like the skills he had on day one and the stuff he's practiced a lot, because we've talked about, Jordan was not the typical example of a new Airsofter, right? So I just wanted to have a chat about that and see how are things now and ask a couple questions around it. So thanks for being here, Jordan. Really appreciate it. So as I was saying just in the intro, I mean, you had a lot of gear before your first game, like most of your gear. I'd say like the average person who just starts Airsoft here in at our fields, like they got jeans and a hoodie and like a CM16 Raider from the store, like a rental or whatever, and a mask, and that's pretty much it. And the next time we see them, they've got like one or two pieces, right? But you had the full get up, right?
Yeah, I'm not particularly proud of everything that I bought for my first game of Airsoft. Between the full multicam that like I really don't wear anymore to, the plate carrier that I got that it served me well for a while, but then I kind of grew out of it, to everything that kind of came with like my first game. I came fully kitted. I had, full camos. I had plate carrier. I had a belt with mag pouch. I'm pretty sure I had mag pouches on my belt at the time. I don't remember. I wouldn't put it past myself to have mag pouches on my belt for like the first time going out and playing. I came with my gun already fully custom camouflage painted. I sprayed it myself, and like it was not worn at all. Yeah, I was super I still love that paint job. It's worn off so well. It tells a story of its life so far. And I came in fully kitted. Everybody there definitely thought that I was much more experienced than I was. I remember specifically the first day, we were playing like an attack and defend type mode where you would hold a position and then the enemy would just keep coming wave after wave. They didn't have limited lives. They could just keep running at you, and that was the goal. So they would wear down your life pool, which was like 30 respawns for each, like for the whole team. It was like 30 respawns. So once 30 people died, game was, pretty much over, because they would just overrun you. And the referee, I kept going back to because I kept dying on my first day. I just kept getting shot over and over again because I didn't know what the hell I was doing. And he's like, I feel like I'm seeing you a lot. And I'm like, yeah, you probably are. Because I just died like 10 seconds ago, and I'm probably going to go die again. So it was definitely an experience. My gear did not help me at all. It helped me confidence-wise because I felt cool, which I feel like is like a huge part of Airsoft, is feeling cool. That's part of having fun for me, is, the dress-up portion. But yeah, came in fully kitted, full gun. I'd already teched on it, already painted it. I had already practiced a bunch of stuff with my reloads, offside switching, Readyups. I was the Readyup king before we came out. I was practicing those the whole time. I got into the Storm Rider old videos where I was watching all the new player tips, and Readyups were pounded into my brain from a young Airsoft age. So young that it was before my first game. And yeah, I mean, I definitely overshot my target when it came to my first kit. I'm not upset about it, but definitely wish I would have taken it slower, so I would have known what I wanted before I just dumped in with what I thought I wanted.
Totally. And I mean, that's interesting because it's a good lesson for a lot of like newer airsofters. And I mean, some veterans would also do well to think about that too, just in terms of like, not buying too much kit or changing too many things all at once. I mean, we've talked about it in the past, but it's a fair point. Like, especially when you don't know what you're getting into, you don't really know if it's going to work or not. Like you said, like your plate carrier, served you well, etc., which is fine. Like, I mean, I think a lot of players do exactly what you just did. That's what I did, right? I got a plate carrier because that's what people tend to use. And then you sort of work your way through and figure out what works for you. But you're definitely right in the sense that if you buy all that up front, that's a lot of stuff that you got to change, or that ends up just in your gear bin for later, which you actually never end up using. I mean, I have a gear bin. I still have my plate carrier just in case I want to use it again. When is that realistically going to happen? Like never,
I
right?
have not touched that plate carrier since I
Yeah.
got my first chest rig, and that was before November of last year. So I played my first game in May, I think, or March. I don't remember when it was. It was just over a year ago now. And that plate carrier, as soon as I got a chest rig, I got like a microfight rig from Emerson. As
Hmm.
soon as I got that, I did not wear that chest rig or that plate carrier again. That has been in the
Yeah.
corner of my room since. That would be a great loan out plate carrier if like I had like a new friend coming to play and they didn't want to get lit up because it has like foam pads and stuff. But yeah, I find that happens with my gear. If I find something I really really like, it stays with me for a while. Like my current chest rig, I haven't switched off of that, but that will probably soon change or something will change. It's weird. I want different things, but I know what works best for me. But like some things just they don't work for every loadout. So, for
Hmm.
example, my loadout when I first came into airsoft was perfect for my M4. It had perfect mag pouches. It had everything set up the way I wanted it, and I got really good at reloading and everything like that. I was very efficient. Dump pouch, everything I needed. When I got into AK, the pouches stopped working for me as well. They didn't fit right. And so that made me go, okay, well, now what do I need? Okay, I need different mag pouches, or maybe I can try to squeeze these mag pouches in. Am I going to start breaking something? Is it going to fall out while I'm running around? Like all of these things start happening. Then you get into LMGs, and then you're like, okay, how am I going to carry around another drum with me? And then you got to figure out,
Hmm.
do I have a drum pouch that I can strap to myself somehow? Am I going to be able to access it myself? All of this ended up coming into me now wearing this same chest rig that I've worn since like I'd say probably December of last year. So about 6 months I've been wearing it, maybe a little bit shorter. I really don't remember when I got it. I got it soon after I got my RPK or at the same time. And now I'm looking at belt rigs, like full belt setups with like suspenders and stuff to like carry lots of stuff, but like around your hips and then suspended. And that's to carry different types of magazines, like drum mags or like full
Hmm.
sustainment loadouts without having it all on your chest. I'm just trying different things. I'm really lucky I have friends that not, I wouldn't say are irresponsibly spending, but have irresponsibly spent in
Yes.
at some point of their life. And it gives me a lot of different ideas when they come to the field. Like, Jordan, check this out. What about this? Have you seen these types of rigs? It's just like a candy store every single time you come to the field and somebody else has something new.
Yeah, and I mean it's interesting because you touch on two concepts that we talk about a fair amount, which is, well, firstly, you want to wait to see what exactly you're going to be doing before you commit to pieces of kit, depending. And I mean, depends on the expense. If it's $20, it's $20, whatever. But like, if you're going to be spending hundreds of dollars, you want to make sure that your investment is good. But something we often talk about too is like, you should try it out before you buy it whenever you can. Right. And people might say, well, I don't really have people who have gear. But like realistically, when you're at the airsoft field, there are people there who you will likely make friends with, or if not friends and acquaintances, that you can very easily be like, hey, can I just try that on for a sec, or what have you? Not necessarily even for a game, although if you're friends with them, I'm sure. I mean, I know for me, like if my friends were like, hey, can I borrow your gear for a game? I'd be like, yeah, absolutely. We are playing this weekend. Stefan, unfortunately, is ill and he's not going to be able to attend. So he's like, guys, if you want my gear, it's there for you, whatever you want, right? The HPA, whatever. So, I mean, in the back of my mind, I'm like, oh, HPA. But anyways, that's not the point. The point is, we all have, I would say, the vast majority of airsofters have access to this sort of network, right? They know people who are able to help them try stuff out. And that's really, really important because it gives you, to your point just now, that perspective of, okay, so now I'm using this different thing. How am I going to carry? And I really, it's interesting about the belt. I wouldn't have thought about that for drum mags, but you're totally right. How would I carry a drum mag? I mean, like right now, it'd have to go in my dump pouch. That'd be it,
Yep.
right?
Yeah, that's a huge thing. So at the last op that we were at, our platoon leader, he had a saw and he had a plate carrier, and his setup was literally the plate carrier with just a single like M240 Bravo pouch on the front of it. It just
Wow.
like a huge magazine pouch on the front of his plate carrier. And I'm like, that makes sense. But imagine trying to go prone if you have
Yeah.
a mag in there. That just doesn't work. And it brings me up to a bunch of different ideas where, yes, I love the chest rig I have. I absolutely love it. I have not wanted to wear a single thing since I got that. But when it comes to guns that you need to be able to self-sustain yourself, if I need to reload myself and not have somebody behind me to grab it out of my backpack, I'm screwed. Like if I'm in the middle of the firefight and I have to take off my backpack, that's X amount of time that I am down where I can't be providing fire for the rest of the team. So going into belt rigs, it was Jeff on my team who is now, he just recently got a saw that he HPA'd. Don't talk to Jeff about HPA because he'll make you feel like everything needs to be HPA'd all the time.
That tends to happen to them.
Yep, that's what I've learned. And I'm not saying he's wrong. Specifically for these types of guns that I'm using, he's absolutely correct. I'm just not ready to make the jump yet. But he brought a belt rig setup to the last op we played because he brought his LMG just in case we needed an LMG if one went down or if somebody on our team went down. You know, he wanted to be able to go and grab the gun. He ended up being able to grab the gun and use it the second day, and he had his belt rig already set up, and I looked at it and it just makes total sense to me. It's his chest is all open, allows him to go prone and allows him to stay low to the ground. All of his mag pouches are to the sides or the back, so he could go as low as he needed to. He had a drum pouch on his hip and frags on the other side and a pistol. Like everything made sense, and it left his chest totally open. He didn't need anything on the front, which makes sense. You're carrying around a big gun. You need to be able to go prone because we're not running around the whole time, especially at big milsims. And it just made me think, like, well, that makes a lot of sense, you know? And then I go back and I look at other people's solutions for what they do with LMGs or support guns in general. And so many people are running belt setups or, you know, some sort of lower rig. You know, some people run chest rigs, but it's really hard to find a good place to put a drum mag on you, like on your upper chest, if to be able to have access. Like imagine putting it under your arm, like on the cummerbund side, then you can't put your arms down at all. If you put it on your back, then you can't grab it yourself. And if you put it on your chest, then you get it. But imagine you can't go prone like at all if that's there. So I'm super lucky that Jeff has all of this stuff for me just to look at.
Did you think like a year ago when you were getting into airsoft that you'd be a year on looking at like LMG stuff and like chest rigs and all that stuff?
You know, honestly, I thought I would have been much higher speed at this point. Like the gear I was looking at, I thought it was just going to progress and get lighter and more efficient and everything else. And honestly, it has gotten much more efficient, but much less high speed. Everything that I have now, since I'm more geared towards playing in milsims, is all about, does this carry well? Does this fit well? Does it work well? LMG is just another aspect of that. That LMG, almost every LMG is much heavier than a normal gun that you'll be holding, so you have to take that into account. You know, plate carriers don't really make sense for running an LMG, and maybe in real life they do because you're getting shot by, you know, stuff that can hurt you. But in airsoft, we're not doing that. We're just shooting each other with BBs, and you don't have to wear armor for that. So it doesn't make sense to me to want to wear a plate carrier to make myself that much more heavy when my gun, you know, my airsoft gun is already much heavier than it needs to be. You know, it's just a disadvantage. So it is weird to look at it now. Like, why am I looking at belt setups? Like, I'm kind of going backwards. It's not really being used. Everything is plate carriers and high speed stuff. And I'm looking at like, what surplus M249 pouches can I get that will hold my drum mag on my hip, you know, that with a buckle. That's definitely not fast. You know, it's just secure.
Yeah. But it's interesting too, because like, even I would suspect, and again, we've said it before, like I'm not in the military, but like they don't always wear the same equipment, right? Same thing with police forces, same thing with firefighters or any other like emergency responder. Depending on the situation you're going in, you're wearing different kit. Like I think about here, like they do a lot of, or not a lot, unfortunately, they don't do a lot of like high angle rescue off the cliffs near the ocean. And the gear that the first responders at the top of the hill is wearing is not the same gear as the guys who are in the boats at the bottom of the hill, right? So similar, because you're dressing for your mission. And I think for us in airsoft, it should be the same thing. Like we don't wear the same thing if it's really hot out versus if it's really cold out. And so again, to your point, yeah, you're playing milsim, but it doesn't make sense in a large milsim to carry all this kit that you actually can't physically carry around. That's really uncomfortable. So I think, thinking back to, you know, your initial days, it sounds, and I mean, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but it certainly seems like you had one vision, and where you ended up was actually in a different, like the reality of airsoft as you knew it on day one was not exactly all you thought it was going to be, or it was very different ultimately in reality than than what you were thinking, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You are totally right. I still think airsoft is a fashion show. I think most of us think airsoft is a fashion show. Um,
100%.
but now my vision of cool is less about that looks super cool, high speed, you look like a special forces, and more as in, wow, that's freaking cool because it makes sense. It works.
Hmm.
That's a huge thing for me. When I switched from plate carrier and fast reloading, open top mag pouches to more easily retainable mag pouches that close on the top and protect from dirt and stuff getting inside, I definitely lost a bit of efficiency. And I think there's like a big point to be made about if you are playing airsoft to be the best, finding a kit that you want and sticking with that kit and getting really good with that kit is the way to go. That's if you want to be the best performer on the field and you want to play the best, get used to the stuff that you're wearing. That doesn't really happen for me because I'm always using something different. So I'm not. I used to be super efficient with my M4. I'm sure I'm still probably super efficient with reloads and stuff, but I haven't used it in a very long time. I'm not nearly as used to it as I was. And one of the first days I played with Jeff, he saw me doing like a speed reload, like a really fast one, and he thought to himself. He told me this afterwards. He's like, "Yeah, I saw you. I saw you do like a super fast reload," and I was like, "Wow, Jordan's a tryhard, like a super tryhard." And I'm like, "Yeah, at that time I was, and I still am a tryhard, but it's different now." I just don't look at airsoft as who looks the coolest because they're the most high speed, most efficient on the field anymore is like the best player. Like there's still like a wow, everybody looks super cool. That's kind of intimidating because they all match type of thing, but when I see a bunch of people that look like they've played airsoft for a long time and they're wearing just like the bare minimum or like super lightweight setups that just make sense, especially like on a hot day, it's always seems like the smarter players are the ones that impress me more now than the ones that are playing the super hard dress up. And I think that's something that changed with me when I came into the sport because I came in. I was super self-conscious about how I looked and how I wanted to look. And I had this image of myself of what I was trying to portray. And now I'm walking out on the field wearing mismatched camouflage, kit bashing AKs with NATO weapons. It's all of these different things that I'm doing. And I'm just not trying to show off anymore. I'm just going out there just to play and have fun. So, coming in with my first kit, it was definitely a show thing. I remember I posted my picture to you guys in the Discord when I first got it, and Chris was like,
Hmm.
"Yeah, you definitely look cool. Like you definitely look cool." And I was like, "Yeah, that was like the whole point is I wanted to feel like I looked cool."
Hmm.
And then just over time, it's like, all right, this looks cool, but does this work? This looks cool, but does it make sense for me? This looks cool, but do I want to try something else? So my efficiency has gone down. Playing with different kit all the time definitely affects me, but as you said, different kit for different uses. I'm not going to wear
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not going to wear a plate carrier to a 12-hour a milsim where I'm going to be out there for 12 hours without going back to base. Like I'm not going to be wearing a plate carrier, especially if it's like 90 degrees like it just was. Like I'm not going to be wearing a plate carrier and my helmet and all the stuff that I need. I'm going to lighten it up. And I think there's a certain line that you cross when it becomes less of show off fashion show and more of this is fashion because it's functional,
Right.
the
Yeah.
functional fashion.
It strikes me that you say about like what impresses you is people who have kit that like is obviously functional and like well put together and stuff. And you can definitely notice that the more you play airsoft, like the people who are wearing kit and they're like it looks really cool versus oh yeah, no, they've put thought into how they're going to use this kit, right? And how it's going to affect them on the field. So that's definitely something I've experienced as well. I wanted to ask you, coming back to like some of the skills that you were practicing on your day one or day minus 30 or whatever you want to call it. Like, what was your practice routine like? Like, what were you going through, and what were you becoming familiar with?
I was becoming familiar with just all of the functions of my airsoft replica. I was making sure that I knew how mags would go in smoothly, fast reloads, putting mags into pouches or into the dump pouch. I was practicing all the transitions, shoulder transitions, ready ups, all of that stuff. The biggest thing that has been good for me, and I have noticed this, with a lot of people that I've seen playing, a lot of people still do not transfer shoulders when they're peeking around different covers. Whether or not you are full transferring by actually switching hand positions or if you're just bumping, it definitely is something that I've noticed out there where I'll be fighting someone and then they'll get onto a left-hand side and they're a righty and they'll wide peek out and their whole body is exposed to me, as opposed
Yeah.
to just swapping shoulders. And that is something that I got the idea of very early on when I was playing, even before I was playing. Like I said, I've done way too many of the drills that you guys have posted, with different guns or different airsoft guns, different setups, different face pro, different ear pro, all of that stuff, because everything that you're wearing affects how you're doing it. So shouldering your airsoft replica with a plate carrier on, totally different than doing it with a chest rig on. Totally different doing it with even just a different shirt, different bulkiness. You put a radio speaker up on your chest, now you have to maneuver around it. All of those different things, it just kind of came back to being like, did I train for this? Should I be training specifically for this? Or should I just get the idea of what I should be doing down? So like my Readyups, super important. I definitely have been getting a little bit lazy with my Readyups recently, due to my little break from airsoft. I've just kind of been doing absolutely nothing airsoft related for the past 3 weeks now, and I'm doing pretty good. I'm probably going to go play this weekend, the week before my next op, but those soft skills don't feel like they're just like disappearing on me. It's more so the idea of them. I think thinking about them to me is more important than actively doing them all the time, because I have the right idea. And I think a lot of that transferred from different things into airsoft. So I played a lot of video games. I played a lot of shooters, specifically like slower tactical shooters. And in those games, angles and movement are super important. And they are very similar to airsoft in that way. So it was less about who had the best aim and more about who had the best angle. And that made sense to me in airsoft. So a lot of that stuff transferred to me, and I didn't feel like I was ever like totally lost out on the field. There was a lot of things that made sense just because, it was like we were playing video games in real life. So skills that were outside of airsoft also transferred over. Communication skills. I've never been a shy person. Being able to talk to people, being able to communicate on the field, super important. I always talk about that. I feel like whenever I get on the podcast, I'm always talking about communication. And that has been super important on and off the airsoft field. It's not just important when I'm talking to my teammates on the field, it's talking to the community off the field. And I don't feel shy. I'm not embarrassed to go up and talk to people or start conversations. And in turn, it's led us to meet a bunch of awesome people. We've been able to go up and do a bunch of things at different fields, and, field owners know about us. And, it's nice because we can be talking and then my team will just be there. All of my squad mates will just be there, and then they put a name to a face. We give them a patch. It's communication both on and off the field, I feel, has been like honestly the biggest thing. And both on and off the field is also important because without that communication skill, I wouldn't have met my friends. I wouldn't have met my teammates. I wouldn't have had Jeff on my team from when I randomly went up to him and started talking to him after I spawn camped him the first day I ever played with him. I wouldn't have met Matt and Will the first day I ever played airsoft at Feel Good Farms, because I wouldn't have gone up and just talked to Matt because I thought he looked like he knew what he was doing. Spoiler alert, he definitely knew what he was doing, more than I expected. But I was very lucky, that I went up to those people and talked. So soft skills between Readyups, practicing reloads, super important. Less important than I thought they were going to be. Airsoft for me now is more of a social thing. Like, I go out there and I have a great time with my friends. Whether we win or lose, it's whatever. Obviously, it's awesome to win, but it's not as simple as who does the most Readyups anymore. There's a lot more that comes into it. You can be the fastest reloader at the field. You can be the best shoulder transitioner. You're still going to get outshot. You're still going to get somebody that beats you. Airsoft is a game, and I think if you're not trading, I feel like you're not having fun a lot of the time. So that's kind of how I look at it for those.
Did you think that communication was going to be such a big deal as it was on day one? Because you probably didn't do too much communications training, so to speak, right?
Yeah, no, I didn't do any communications training. I didn't even have a radio when I first started playing. Thank goodness I did not have a radio. Why would I have a radio before I ever go and play my first game? That would
Right.
be a me thing to do, but I did not.
Well, yeah, I
Yeah,
wasn't gonna say
yeah.
it, but that's fair
Nope,
enough.
that would have totally been a me thing to do. I only got my radio after I played with a group of people that lent me a radio, and I realized how useful it was when you have a group of people
Hmm.
that were using it properly. I think that I didn't have a good experience of communication on the first days that I was playing airsoft, because the first day I ever played was a super small day. Who in their right mind is playing on Mother's Day? No, it wasn't Mother's
Hmm.
Day. Easter. Okay. Mother's Day. If I was playing on Mother's Day, I would have felt horrible. Easter, not as bad as skipping Mother's Day. So I playing my first day ever on Easter. There was a very small turnout, and I definitely didn't realize how important communication was outside of the social aspect off the field. Um,
Hmm. Yeah, for sure.
because I met people that I told them it was my first time playing. They were helping guide me around, and that was a whole positive experience for my first day of playing. It was less talking on the field. It was more, oh, I see where he's going. I'm going to try to follow where he's going. I didn't know any call outs. I don't know what's going on. I'm just trying to focus on saying hit correctly so I don't embarrass myself like that. Those were the things that were going through my head on my first day of airsoft.
I mean, that's
And
legit.
yeah, like am I gonna sound dumb when I yell out hit because my voice is gonna crack or something? Like all of these things were going through my head while I played my first game, and communication definitely ramped up once I got into bigger games and I started playing with more coordinated groups of people. And I think that communication, like I said before, on and off the field, even in the social setting, is super important. If there's not somebody communicating with the team or a group of people as to what's going on or what's the next step, people just start sitting around. They don't know what to do. And if there's not somebody talking about it, that can either ruin what's going on, or it can, just kind of slow the day down to the point where it's like, why are we playing?
Yeah. Are there any skills that, and we've talked a little bit about like how you've moved past like speed reloads, and, move past like doing ready ups like all day, every day, 24/7 kind of deal. But like, are there some skills that you thought were going to be really important or really useful, and maybe that you even did drills for that you don't really actually use, are no factor?
I will say the one drill that I tried to focus on that I really have yet to use is offside reloading. I
Hmm.
really, and this is probably just a me thing. Maybe it's how I plan my shots or my reloads, because I do a lot of admin reloads when I feel like I might be low and there might be an engagement coming up. But I never. I'm not going to say it's not important, because it's absolutely important to know how to do an offside reload, whether or not you're transitioning back to your strong side to do the reload and then swapping back, or doing it all offside. But that was probably the biggest thing for me. I thought that there was going to be so many times I was going to be mid firefight shooting offside. I'm just going to have to drop a mag and just continue going. And honestly, I could probably count on one hand the amount of times I've had to do that. Reloading mid airsoft battle, like mid trading shot to shot, is also not nearly as common for me. We also play at much bigger fields around here, so engagements you can kind of feel when they're coming, as opposed to a
Hmm.
much smaller field where it's constant fighting all the time and you might not have time to reload. So for me, I think speed reloads were like the least important part of my training. Did it make me feel cool to hit like a really good reload and then keep leaning back out and getting into the fight? Absolutely. Did I get a couple kills at times because I was faster than the other person for reloading, or they thought I was reloading and it was going to take longer and I popped back out? Absolutely. But um, was it the most important thing, as important as I thought it was going to be? Absolutely not. Secondary, having a secondary airsoft gun. I've the amount of times that I've seen people drop pistols and actually do something with it, I can probably say twice. Like the first time was the first time I ever played with Will, and it was the first day I ever played at Field Good Farms. We had flanked around a position, and I think the airsoft gun he was using had a DMR type limit. He had like an engagement distance, and he pulled out a freaking deagle, like just a full on deagle, and cocked it in front of me, and then we pushed into behind the base and we cleared it out and we won the round. That was like the first time, and honestly probably one of the only two times where I was like, wow, having a pistol would be super useful. Outside of that, I don't think they're useful at all outside of very specific weapon classes that require them. So
Mm-hmm.
speed reloads and secondary airsoft weapons, airsoft, pistols, whatever you strap to your leg, strap to your hip. Uh, it's not that important. You can get away without running a pistol for probably the entirety of your airsoft career.
Yeah, especially if you're not running like a DMR class or something like that, where or if you play at a field that doesn't have minimum engagement distance. It's so funny though that you say that because as a side note, I was working on a video a while ago, and I was looking to find a clip through all my airsoft footage from years of me transitioning to my airsoft pistol and engaging someone with it. And for the life of me, I could not find one of me actually doing that. Now, of course, has it happened? Did I just not get it on video? I mean, probably, whatever. However, both games this year that I have played, I've drawn and gotten a kill with my pistol both games. So like both game days, I should say. So it just took me that effort of trying to prove to myself that I never use it to actually start using it, right? I guess. But
What did that take you? Like 16 years of playing airsoft to actually get it going and notice it?
Well, I think there's in the history of me playing airsoft, I definitely have used pistols. But I mean, I've been playing 16 years. Have I used my pistol more than 16 times? I mean, probably.
Yeah.
Right. But not that many. It's certainly not like hundreds and hundreds of times. Excluding pistol games and that kind of stuff that we, we were just like farting around trying to have a good time on a very, very small field. Everybody who's got pistols, let's go, or playing like, and different game modes or whatever. But yeah, it's funny that you say that, because I same thing for me. Like, we did lots of sidearm transitions, lots of sidearm reloads. It's stuff that we practiced all the time. I used to practice with the timer, making sure that I could draw my sidearm nice and quick, like drop my primary, draw my secondary, start shooting, like all this kind of stuff. And in reality, it doesn't really come up a whole lot.
In a vacuum, it makes sense. Like in a vacuum, it's like, oh, this is a super useful skill. I could definitely use this. I think the could is the important word here. Will you use it? Will it be as effective as just being good at reloading? Now, those are two different questions. No.
Yeah. And we had a discussion in the Discord a while ago, because like I was sort of being a little flippant about how like, oh, well, drawing your sidearm is always faster than reloading, and like being like, oh, well, actually that's not true. And in point of fact, I mean, I think it was Matt who was like calling me on it, and he said, you know what, bud, I think you should look into that, because it certainly is possible to have a draw that is faster than a reload.
Absolutely.
Right. And I was like, okay, yeah, all right, fair enough. So as a consequence of that, I think I was really, because that was my mentality. I'm like, I'm never gonna draw my sidearm because it's faster to reload. And if that's not necessarily the case for you, and you've trained and you've practiced, I mean, that's fine. And one of the situations where I did draw my sidearm this year is because I was in the middle of a reload and stuff got really just messed up. The reload, it was I was having some problem with my sling, with my rifle, and someone started running right at me. So what option do I have than to ditch my primary and draw my secondary, right? So like stuff like that's going to come up. Is it worth carrying a sidearm for those particular situations? Well, I mean, I'm glad that I had it for that particular time, but like,
I think it depends. I think it depends on what you think is worth it. Is it worth it to carry around that extra weight? Is it worth it for that extra maintenance that you have to worry about with that airsoft pistol?
Totally.
What is worth it to you? And people walk around with weighted plates in their vest like you used to. Is it worth it for you at the time? You thought it was, but it all depends. I'm not going to say that pistols are worthless. They're absolutely not
definitely
worthless.
not. Yeah.
They're definitely useful. Have I found the use that they fulfill for me? Not yet. So until then, that's my opinion on it.
For sure. And I think to come back to your point from earlier too, like, it's also about the mind game. Like, for me, having that pistol on my belt gives me a little bit of boosted confidence, like if I'm going to go into a building, because I know I'm going to be a little bit more maneuverable with that. Does that regularly come up? No, it doesn't. But when I'm in that situation, I'd like to know that I have that option. But to your point, I'm not playing large Milsim games. I'm not having to haul that stuff around all the time. It's not all this extra weight. That it's ounces equals pounds, pounds equals pain kind of deal. Like I don't have to deal with any of that stuff. So yeah, it totally could be worth it. I'll tell you though, that getting that one kill for that guy rushing at me with my pistol, totally worth it. That paid for itself. Like
absolutely. I think it falls into the same category as people that use consumable grenades, grenades that cost money. I had some at my most recent milsim, and I'm not upset that I had and threw as many as I did. It was totally worth it. I got a couple of kills with them. It was freaking awesome. Anytime you throw something that costs money and you get a kill with it, fantastic. Feels great. Now, when you don't have them and you need them, it feels horrible. It's the same thing like if you needed an airsoft pistol and you didn't have it, it would be like, wow, this really sucks. It's the same thing. I think it goes along the lines of, do I feel like I need this? Do I feel like I'm going to need to have this? And this kind of related. The event runner that we were with, we were talking to him, and he said that he was going to make a shirt. He was thinking about making a shirt that said, "Am I $20 angry yet?"
Yes.
And that's like, am I $20? Is this $20 worth? Throwing this grenade? Is this $20 worth using this consumable? And I think it kind of, comes back to the same thing. Like, what is worth it for you? If it's worth it to you to carry around an airsoft pistol because you think you're going to need it, totally fine. That's great. If it's worth it to you to think that you need to carry around airsoft grenades because you think you might use them, totally fine. If it's not worth it to you and you haven't found a reason to do it yet, that's also totally fine. I think it really comes down to what you want from the game as a player.
So thinking back to like your first days and like your lead up, like I don't remember. Did you have a sidearm back then? Did you come?
No.
Yeah. Okay.
I still have. I never bought my own my airsoft pistol. Will actually gave me one.
Okay.
And that's the only one that I have. Until I buy my own, that will be the only one I have. And honestly, I don't really plan on buying one right now. If I need to use one, I have one. Thank you, Will, because I know you're going to listen to this. Thank you, Will. I really do appreciate that M9 that you gave me. I just, for right now, there's just no need for me to use it.
Yeah.
I have a support weapon. I have my RPK, my support gun, and I can use semi-auto with that.
Yeah.
I can use that inside small spaces. I don't need a sidearm in order to engage from close distances with that. All I have to do is flip it into semi. I have other weapons that are the same thing. It's for that game mode. That's what those airsoft guns are classified as. Like, I can use them in semi-auto at whatever distance, which would be the only reason why I feel like I need a pistol, why I feel like I need that, or I'm going to be like let down. So yeah, I never bought one. I did buy mag for it because it came with one that Will gave me. I lost the one that he gave me like the second game I ever carried the pistol around with me because it fell out of my pistol while it was in the holster. Never to be seen again. I just came off the field and I took it out and I was like, what? Where did it go? And we retraced my steps. Jeff walked out there with me, never found it again. Yeah. Still salty about that. It's probably the reason why I haven't brought it back out again.
Yeah, clearly.
I don't just want to lose $30 on the field somewhere. It's probably even more than that now. So yeah, still haven't bought my own pistol.
So one of the last questions that I wanted to ask you is about like the drills that you had done, because I know we talked about Readyups, and I'm firmly, if you listen to any of our content, like I'm a firm believer that the Readyup is probably the most important exercise that you can do, because going up on target and snap shooting is like what we do in airsoft 99% of the time, right? As people who use AEGs, like if you're a sniper or whatever, like that's a different kettle of fish, as we say on the East Coast, but like that's different. If you're running an AEG and you're going cover to cover, you're shooting around corners, like you're doing snap shooting all the time. And in that context, the Ready Up is probably the most important drill. My question for you is, how have you found that your Ready Up, muscle memory has transferred across all the different airsoft replicas that you've been using? Because you've used several now, like between the M4 to the RPK and to your SAW or whatever your LMG that you're using now is. Like, how do you find that all that has transferred?
The motion stays the same. Mm-hmm. The idea of it stays the same. The feeling, depending on the setup of your airsoft gun, stays the same. But I think the only factor that changes is optics and the weight of the replica. So doing ready ups with my little AK-74U and my M4, super easy. They're super light. They're like under 8 pounds. I don't really have to worry about it. It gets a little tiring doing it after a while, but whatever. Doing ready ups with my RPK thing fully loaded is pretty heavy. It takes a lot. So I honestly, I do snap shoot with the RPK, but playing as a support gunner, it's a lot less of that for me. A lot of it is, I'm maybe not on the front lines, or I'm looking at a predetermined position, and it's less of me shooting at things that I see quickly and more of me putting down sustained fire in order to support the team.
Yeah, that's true.
The idea of having a fast ready up still applies to every airsoft gun that you're using, because if you can't bring your airsoft gun up to target and shoot before the other person does, and they have a well-tuned replica, you're probably going to get shot. That's just how it's going to work. You're probably going to get out. I mean, if they're better than you, or if they have a better shot at you, that's just how it's going to work.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like the ready up in general, while it has transferred between guns, I think it is different. It's definitely a different spot. It depends on how you are playing. Like you said, snipers, that's not really nearly as important unless they're playing like CQB snipers, which I've definitely seen before. But when it comes to people that have just like regular replicas, regular ARs or AKs, anything, any replica they could be using, I have seen many times a fight start and end because somebody was much faster
Mm-hmm.
than the other person, or somebody rounded the corner already in like low ready. They rounded the corner and the person they have their airsoft gun down, or they're messing around with something else. Maybe they're stuck in your sling like you were the other day.
Yeah.
All of that stuff translates. I think it's the ready ups for me. It's the idea of them. Jeff had a picture of me that one of the field marshals took at one point, and he said, and you've mentioned this too, you saw one picture of me. He's like, are you not in low ready right now? You're like, I don't think I know you, because I've never seen you not in low ready in a picture.
Yeah.
And it's like a subconscious thing. If you're not thinking about it all the time, if you are thinking about it all the time, it will go away after a while. You'll just start doing it. But it's like that. The idea of it's the same thing for me. The ready up itself, important to be able to do it. The idea of needing to be able to do it at a given time, I think, is almost just as important.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're thinking like, oh, I'm not going to need to do this, I'm going to peek around the corner without having my airsoft gun up, you're not putting yourself in a position for success.
Yeah.
You're setting yourself up for failure if you're not peeking with your airsoft gun ready. And I think a lot of people coming into it, they don't think about that. You see it with rentals. You see it with newer players coming into the game, or very casual players. You see it. You see them peek around a corner and it's just their head, or they have their airsoft gun down and they're just looking around. All of those things. It's less about being high speed and more about the game at that point,
Mm-hmm.
I'd say. And ready ups definitely help, you win. If you want to win, do your ready ups. It'll make you a lot better. Like you said, it's probably one of the most important things that you can do. Do your ready ups, or just know how to, snap shoot your gun, get it ready, and get, practice with your optic, practice with your replica so that you know how it shoots. If you're not doing it, you're actively putting yourself at a disadvantage out on the field versus other players that are doing it. I think it kind of goes into, and this is somewhat off topic, but the fitness portion of it. We haven't talked about training fitness wise. We've talked about training with replica manipulation and, taking corners the right way or switching shoulders. But so many times I've been out on the field and I'm not, a marathon runner. I'm not as super in shape or anything. But from the first day I played airsoft to now, there was a huge difference in my cardio, the way that I'm able to be out on the field, the actions I'm able to perform. And the fitness aspect, I feel like, is something that people don't train into airsoft at all. They don't think about that. Airsoft is a game. They go out to have fun. I would assume that some people don't like to put in extra hard work to be good at their hobby. They might just want to enjoy their hobby when they go out on the weekends to do it. But fitness is so huge depending on where you play. If you're playing at a very elevated hilly field and you are wearing too much gear and you're out of breath when you take your first couple of steps, that's going to put you at a disadvantage. It's the same thing as not training with your airsoft replica. It's if you're not practicing, if you're not actively trying to get better at that, it's not going to happen for you. So, Readyups, super important, like I was saying, but I think that people, specifically people that are having a hard time with it, just focusing on pushing yourself a little bit while you're playing, it makes a hell of a difference. Because I could go out there and be lazy and just not, I could get tired and then just not push myself, or, I feel like I don't have enough energy, so I'm not going to do this. Obviously, I'm not pushing myself till I die.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
I'm not going to push myself past the limit, but airsoft as a fitness tool too, super, super, super useful. Even if it's only that one day a week that you're doing it, if you're working out for 6 hours because you're running around and hiking, that adds to your enjoyment for the game. Next time you get out there, it's going to be easier. It's all of those things come together, where I think it's less about just the aiming and more about like you as a player on the field, that that you should train less for just your airsoft replica and more for just you as a player.
Well, and I think too, like if you're physically fit, right, and you're less tired, you're more able to perform better on the field. We've talked about that in the past before too. But like if you're running from cover to cover and you're out of breath in between pieces of cover, how are you going to aim? Right? It's going to be more difficult. That's why, like in a lot of, like obstacle courses and stuff, like you're out of breath, they tax you, and it makes it hard to do that fine motor stuff because you're just so tired, right? And the people who succeed at those tend to be those who have better, for lack of better expression, for better economy, right? They're able to push themselves as much but with less energy or less oxygen and water consumption or whatever. And I've seen that a lot at the airsoft field, where I'm like, we get off the field after a round and I'm like, all right, let's go again. People are like, we need a break. And I'm like, all right, fine, take a break. And then they have a break and I'm like, all right, let's go. We play. It's like, all right, we need a break. And I'm like, no, let's go. Like I'm good to go.
Let's keep going.
Right? Like my energy level is up. Like I'm, I do distance running, but like I'm not any like crazy athlete in that respect, but it's pushed my own recovery to a point where I can get good use of it when I'm hitting the field. Right. And that's totally, whether it's, you're a runner or maybe you play basketball, like on weeknights, or you play, whatever, like all that contributes to what you were just saying, which is that physiological training. That's also very important because it is a physical sport. If you want to be that kind of player. And of course, there's no onus to do that. Like there are lots of people who are fine being just sort of like chill, just doing their own thing, whatever. But I mean, that's not how we roll, right? It never has been how we roll, right?
Yeah, and I think just like to kind of close it out here, just to go, as it's not just about fitness, but the training aspect of it. Mm-hmm. I at my last milsim, very hilly field, very hot day. It was like 95 or 94 degrees, very, very, very hot, and I think that was like 50 something for you when I made the conversion. It was hot. Yeah. You knew it was hot.
Not quite 50. I can't remember what 93 freedom degrees is, but it's definitely 40 something, I think.
Yeah, it was hot. Yeah. And there was a player on the field that we're good friends with, and he's not a very small guy. He's a pretty big guy, and there's lots of people there that were definitely, you would say, were more in shape than him. I didn't see him stop when we were out on a patrol once. Mm-hmm. He was leading the pack. He was pushing forward. He wasn't stopping and being out of breath. And that is somebody that, you would think is like, oh, wow, we're going to have to wait for him. But he was pushing us. Mm-hmm. He was pushing us to keep up with him. And I think that that's like a thing. It's not just about, I'm not saying that you have to be super in shape and, you can be bigger and play airsoft. I'm bigger and play airsoft. That doesn't stop people from playing airsoft. Mm-hmm. But you need to train yourself so that your body is ready to handle that. If you can be out there and you're a bigger guy and you're used to doing it, that's totally fine. That's absolutely great. You don't have to be in the best shape of your life to enjoy the game and last out in the field. You just have to do it enough so that you know your limits and you know your endurance and you can train for that. Mm-hmm. It's less about being super high speed built operator and more about like, can I do this for an extended period of time because I've done it or I've practiced it, So that was just like my last point. I'm not saying you got to be fit. No, definitely. You just got to practice. You just got to train it. It's the same thing. It's a skill. You just got to train for it.
And I bet you didn't think that was going to be a thing on day one, hey?
No. Well, I thought I was going to come in and I was rudely awakened with like, holy crap, I am out of shape. And I immediately knew the first sprint of the day, I was like out of
Hmm.
breath. I was like, holy crap. Definitely a rude awakening. Now I understand it and I respect it more. And I pace myself,
Hmm.
and that's like a big thing. But obviously, over the year, it's that amount of cardio is just added up every single time, and it just makes it easier and easier every time you go out. So
Yeah.
train, train for what you want to do.
Yeah, man. Well, listen, it was great catching up with you. I'm hopefully some of you guys will take it to heart, especially when it comes to the training. And I know a lot of you guys who are listening are playing in conditions that are quite hot. Some of you have mentioned like, oh, well, I'm concerned. Like, what do I wear? Like all this kind of stuff. Definitely give it the respect that it's deserved, right? So if you're hitting a field and it's going to be really hot and you're not sure what your endurance is like, just like Jordan was saying, like take it easy, right? Don't push yourself because heat exhaustion is a real thing. Like heat stroke is a real thing. You got to be careful, right? But anyways, not to go too far down that life advice bit, but Jordan, thanks so much for being here with us today. Really appreciate it as always. It's great to have you.
Thanks, Phil. I'm always appreciative of having me on. So bring me back anytime you want.
Sounds great. Well, guys, thanks so much for listening. And that's all we got for this week. We'll talk to you next week.